Imagine, for just a second, waking up in a dimly lit, wood-paneled pub.
Okay, setting the scene. I like it.
Right. So you're in Sherman Oaks, California, and the year, well, according to the newspaper sitting right next to your drink, is 1984.
A classic era.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
And you're holding a glass of something called a Battenberg beer. You're looking at this chalk menu on the wall advertising a Corbin's Cod burger.
Sounds very specific.
Very specific. And the thing is, you know your own name perfectly well. But as you sit there, you also have these incredibly vivid, like overlapping memories of studying xenozoology on a spaceship.
Which is obviously a massive contradiction to the 1984 pub.
Totally. And then, just to completely shatter whatever tiny sense of normalcy you have left, you reach into your pocket, and your fingers brush against the cold, heavy metal of a highly advanced futuristic ray gun.
Man, it is the ultimate state of cognitive dissonance, really.
Absolutely.
Because your immediate surroundings, the smell of the pub, the date on that newspaper, they're telling you one very coherent story. But your instincts, those fragmented memories of a spaceship, and the literal physical objects in your pockets are screaming a completely different reality. It begs a terrifying question. What do you do when reality itself is gaslighting you?
And that is exactly the thesis we are exploring today.
It's a big one.
It really is. So in this deep dive, we are looking at the ultimate information overload survival scenario. We've got our hands on the source files from a highly documented temporal anomaly event.
Right, the Sherman Oaks incident.
Exactly. It centers on two displaced Starfleet officers and we'll just call them Steve and Ryan for clarity, who find themselves trapped in this reality-bending 1984 construct.
And to get out, they can't trust their own eyes. They can't even trust their own memories.
No, not at all. They have to rely on fragmented muscle memory and some seriously hidden technology to break out. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to understand their survival, we really have to look at how they test the boundaries of their delusion.
Right, because they don't just sit in the pub and accept it.
Exactly. Sitting in that pub, Steve and Ryan don't just accept their fate, they decide to apply the scientific method to their own apparent insanity.
Which is a wild thing to do when you think you might be losing your mind.
But it's smart. The most verifiable piece of data they have is that physical weapon in their pocket. So they head out to an abandoned park near a local campus to test it.
And test it they do. Ryan points his weapon at a boulder, pulls the trigger, and completely vaporizes it.
Just gone.
Completely gone. We're talking a massive rock turned instantly into a thin scatter of black, glass-like sand.
Wow.
Yeah. It's an undeniable physical confirmation that their memories of being spacefaring officers are actually real.
But, there are consequences to firing futuristic weapons in a park.
Oh, yeah. Naturally, a concussive blast in a quiet 1984 suburb draws the police immediately. The cops descend on the park, forcing our two displaced officers to scatter and hide in a nearby library.
And this is where the psychology of survival completely diverges for the two of them.
Right, because Steve tries to bluff his way out, and Ryan ends up brawling. But I have to ask you about Steve's approach, because isn't it incredibly risky?
It seems like it, yeah.
I mean, he sits at a desk, grabs a copy of Primate Psychology for Dummies, of all things.
It's a great detail.
Yeah, and when Officer Garrett approaches him, Steve feeds him a flawlessly constructed fake identity. He says he lives at 310 Oak Street. His dad works at Stanley & Sons. He is literally leaning into the delusion. Why would he do that?
Because Steve is taking a highly analytical counterintelligence approach here.
Okay, how so?
Well, he recognizes that the reality construct has implanted false memories into his brain to make him fit the 1984 narrative,
Yeah,
right?
the backstory you gave him.
Exactly. So instead of fighting those implants, he weaponizes them. He feeds the officer the exact data the system expects to hear. By adopting the camouflage the environment provided, he passes the security check.
Wow. He tells the system what the system wants to hear.
Exactly.
But Ryan doesn't have that kind of composure. He takes the visceral route.
Very visceral.
Yeah. When he gets cornered by another cop in the library, he tries to run, the cop grabs him, and suddenly Ryan's body just takes over on complete autopilot.
Just pure instinct.
Pure instinct. He experiences these violent, flashing memories, like fighting in a cage, a green-skinned alien shooting at him. And before he even realizes what he's doing, he's using advanced martial arts to flip this police officer over his shoulder.
That's incredible.
It feels like booting up a video game where your character somehow has all the endgame skills unlocked, but you completely skip the tutorial and have no idea what buttons you're pressing.
That video game analogy is actually perfect for what is happening neurologically.
Really? How does that work?
Well, We are seeing procedural memory completely bypass declarative memory here.
Okay, break that down for me.
So declarative memory is the what, knowing what year it is, knowing your address, your name. That part of Ryan's brain, likely the hippocampus, is compromised by the temporal anomaly.
Right, the gaslighting part.
Exactly. But procedural memory, the how, is stored deep in the basal ganglia and the cerebellum.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, his conscious mind has no idea how he knows complex martial arts physics, but his nervous system remembers the exact torque required to throw a 200-pound man. The muscle memory is entirely intact.
Even with those endgame skills, though, the math catches up to him. I mean, he can't fight an entire police force.
No, nobody can.
So he gets arrested by a furious older cop who finds the ray gun, but hilariously dismisses it as a kid's toy.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah, so Ryan gets thrown into an empty jail cell. And this is where the situation shifts from a standard police procedural into something deeply unsettling.
The chief.
Yes, the police chief walks in. He's this tall guy with a goatee, and he brings Ryan some ice for his bruises.
Seems nice enough at first.
Right, but his vocabulary is entirely wrong. He doesn't talk like a beat cop. He refers to the town as a holding frame.
A holding frame. Right.
Yeah, and he tells Ryan that he and Steve are a threat to the peace because they refuse to stick to their assigned roles as students.
What's fascinating here is that we are no longer looking at a law enforcement officer.
What do you mean?
If you look closely at the language and behavior, this police chief is functioning as a biological immune system.
An immune system, like white blood cells.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Think of this 1984 reality construct as a living biological host. Ryan and Steve are foreign bodies.
They're the virus.
They are pathogens that have invaded the bloodstream and are destabilizing the environment. The chief's primary directive isn't to enforce local municipal codes. His job is to isolate and quarantine the infection before the host organism, the pocket dimension itself, crashes from the interference.
Which means Ryan isn't just in jail, he's in a petri dish waiting to be eradicated.
Exactly. He's marked for deletion.
But to break him out, Steve has to overcome that exact same immune system.
And Steve's approach is very different.
Very. After dodging the police at the library, Steve sneaks back to the park to grab the belongings they dropped. He sits down on a bench with his strangely heavy Walkman cassette player.
The 80s technology.
Right, but he finds a tiny, almost invisible seam on the plastic, clicks it, and pulls out a science tricorder, model D174F.
Hidden in plain sight.
Now, to use it as a weapon, he has to hack it. He opens the casing and starts rearranging these tiny pastel-colored isolinear crystals, swapping a clear one, a light blue one, and a pale yellow one.
Such a delicate operation.
And he does this entirely by mindless reflex. Now, I understand Ryan throwing a punch by reflex, but we're talking about complex subatomic engineering here. Can high-level physics really become as automatic as breathing?
Under the specific pedagogical conditions of something like Starfleet Academy, yes. Absolutely.
Wait, really? The physics math just becomes a reflex?
It comes back to that basal ganglia function we talked about, but elevated to an extreme degree.
Okay.
When you drill complex technical procedures thousands of times under high stress, the cognitive load literally shifts from the prefrontal cortex, which handles active problem solving, down into the deeper habit-forming structures of the brain. So Steve is altering the harmonic resonance of the tricorder's power cell. He doesn't need to consciously do the math. His hands simply remember the geometric pattern of the crystals required to overload the circuitry.
His hands bypass his amnesia to rewrite the hardware. That is incredible.
It is a remarkable survival trait.
So the tricorder scans his voice print, confirms he's a lieutenant commander on the USS Arawyn, and suddenly Steve turns this little gray box into an electromagnetic resonance generator. He casually walks into the police station and triggers it.
The resulting physics are a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare.
Oh, I love that term, asymmetrical warfare.
It's exactly what it is.
Oh.
By modifying those crystals, he generates a targeted EMP that disrupts all electrically sensitive equipment within range for exactly 22 minutes and 44 seconds.
Down to the second.
Yep. He essentially neutralizes a numerically superior force by instantly stripping away the infrastructure they rely on to communicate and operate.
And the failure cascade is spectacular. I mean, the station descends into absolute pandemonium.
Complete chaos.
Electric typewriters die mid-sentence. Alarms start screeching wildly off-key. A coffee maker in the break room literally bursts into flames because the voltage regulators fail.
Which is a great distraction.
Oh, yeah. And the electronic locks on the holding cells go completely mad. Some spring open, others jam shut entirely, and then the entire building is plunged into pitch blackness.
He forces the construct's immune system into a state of total sensory deprivation.
The white blood cells are blinded.
Exactly. The white blood cells can't communicate with each other anymore.
And that sensory deprivation sets the stage for a brutal escape. The electronic lock on Ryan's cell fails open. He sneaks out, but runs right into Officer Jarl in a pitch-black stairwell.
Talk about bad timing.
Right. They are brawling in the dark, and then Officer Garrett, the guy from the library, joins in. He throws Ryan to the ground and starts choking him out. Ryan is losing oxygen. His vision is going black.
It's a really close call.
Very close. But Steve appears at the top of the stairs with the modified tricorder. He targets the localized electronics on Garrett's body. Garrett's heavy flashlight starts strobing wildly in his eyes, and his radio belt emits this ear-piercing, high-decibel feedback.
Ouch.
Yeah, the sensory overload forces Garrett to instinctively let go, and Steve and Ryan bolt out of the station and vanish into the night.
They leveraged chaos to achieve the extraction.
Yep.
It was perfectly executed.
They're not safe yet.
Not at all. Escaping the quarantine is only the first step. They're still trapped inside the biological host. They have to process the data they've gathered if they want to actually leave.
Right, they need a safe house. So they managed to secure room 110 at the Heritage Oak Motel. Which, by the way, if you're curious about the inflation rate of a pocket dimension, cost them a very 1984 price of $22.50 for the night.
A bargain?
Seriously. So Ryan is chewing on pain meds for cracked ribs while they sit down on the bed to properly interrogate this tricorder. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Because the tricorder wasn't just a tool for an EMP, it was passively recording data before their memories were wiped.
Yes.
They discover a video file time-stamped at 17.50 standard time.
And the playback is wild. It shows Steve, Ryan, and 3 other crewmates standing on Oak Street. But the street is completely frozen.
Like a photograph.
Yeah. They are scanning a civilian woman who is locked in time like a statue. And then, out of nowhere, a massive, rippling temporal wave washes over the street, sucks Steve and Ryan in, and the recording abruptly cuts to static.
Which is terrifying to watch yourself go through.
Oh, and during this deep dive into the tech, they also casually discover that their phase pistols have an overload setting equivalent to 15 tons of TNT.
Just a small tactical nuke in your pocket.
Just a casual, terrifying detail to realize you've been carrying around all day.
Well, while the explosive yield of their weapons is certainly a deterrent, the critical piece of intelligence they extract is the timeline analysis.
Great, the math.
Steve uses the tricorder to measure the local density of chronoton particles.
Chronoton particles being the theoretical subatomic particles that govern the flow of time.
Exactly. When the fabric of space-time fractures, chronoton particles bleed out into the environment.
Like radiation from a leak.
Yes. And by mapping the mathematical decay rate of these particles, the tricorder reveals a pattern. These temporal distortions aren't random at all. They are cyclical.
They happen on a schedule.
The math dictates that the next temporal wave is going to hit the exact coordinates of Oak Street in exactly 2 hours, 48 minutes, and 37 seconds.
Down to the second again.
Always trust the data. More importantly, it calculates an 88.6% probability that if they ride that specific wave, it will act as a tether, pulling them back to their original timeline.
So they have a ticking clock and an 88.6% chance of survival. It's incredibly high stakes. But frankly, having a hard objective number must be incredibly comforting when everything else around you is a complete illusion.
That is the philosophical core of their survival, really. And it has massive relevance for you, the listener.
Oh, definitely.
We might not be trapped in a 1984 temporal anomaly, but we operate in an ecosystem of deepfakes, algorithmic gaslighting, and entirely manufactured realities every day.
That is so true.
Steve and Ryan only survive because they adhere to a strict methodology. When your feelings, your memories, and your environment are actively designed to deceive you, you have to find the verifiable data.
Look for the hard numbers.
You let the math dictate your actions. Trust your equivalent of the tricorder, whatever that objective anchor happens to be in your life.
Trust the data over the illusion. I love that framing. Okay, so they have their anchor and they have their countdown. Morning breaks, and they have to run a massive gauntlet to get across town to Oak Street.
And the system is looking for them.
Right. But they get unexpected help. The motel clerk at the front desk sees them, completely ignores that they are wanted fugitives, and hands them some worn $20 bills and a city map.
Just gives it to them.
Yeah, and he casually warns them that people who get heavily involved with the police in this town tend to, quote, disappear.
That interaction is a vital clue to the nature of the construct.
Because he's not acting like the cops.
Exactly. If the police chief is the immune system aggressively fighting the anomaly, the motel clerk represents a sympathetic glitch in the programming.
A glitch.
He is a piece of the environmental software that has developed enough awareness to recognize the artificiality of its own existence, and he actively aids the foreign bodies.
Wow. The glitch helps them navigate the system. So they use the cache and the map to jump between 3 different city buses, actively dodging a police helicopter that is sweeping the grid for them.
It's a very tense morning.
Very. They manage to reach Oak Street just as the tricorder's countdown drops into the final seconds. But the system's immune response is waiting for them. The police chief steps out, blocking their path, and demands they drop their weapons.
The final boss.
The final boss. And Ryan, who's completely out of patience, nursing broken ribs, and armed with objective data, simply points his phase pistol and shoots the chief on stun.
So much for diplomacy.
Yeah, the chief drops to the pavement, and the moment he falls, the physical street begins to literally dissolve around them.
The cyclical temporal event initiates. And the physical manifestation of the anomaly is just astounding based on the logs.
It's incredibly visual.
Glowing green geometric lines begin to trace through the grass and the concrete.
Like a grid revealing itself.
Yes. The ground fundamentally loses its molecular cohesion. It turns spongy, adopting the thick, slow viscosity of honey.
Time and space are literally melting around them. A massive wave of rippling distortion crests beneath them. Steve and Ryan sit down on the dissolving pavement, lock arms, and physically surf this rolling berm of reality.
Surfing space-time.
Literally. They are completely engulfed in a deafening, localized roar and expanding nebula-like colored lights. It's total sensory overload, pushing their minds to the absolute brink until, bam, the wave crashes.
And they're out.
They are out. They are unceremoniously dumped onto an empty, manicured lawn. They are still in Sherman Oaks, but it's different now. It's dead silent. The sun's hovering motionless just above the horizon. They tap their comm badges, call out to the USS Arawyn, and finally they hear their ship respond. They rode the wave out.
They cured the symptom and escaped the quarantine.
That they did.
But to truly understand this deep dive, we have to look outside the holding cell. While Steve and Ryan were fighting for their lives, what caused this reality to exist in the first place?
Right. The source of the gaslighting. Because while the jailbreak was unfolding, 2 other crew members from the Arawyn, Ea Flamia, and an AI companion named Ignis, who projects holographically from a ring, were outside the anomaly.
We were tracking something.
We're tracking a massive, highly unusual emotional signature through a quiet suburban cul-de-sac. And they finally locate the source sitting on a curb. It's a young, fair-haired boy named Aster.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, discovering Aster completely recontextualizes everything we just discussed. Aster is not a human child. He is classified in the source files as a juvenile stage 4 of the Meridian.
A Meridian?
Yes. He is a cosmic entity wielding immense reality-altering power who is stationed on Earth simply to observe this mundane suburban town.
But Aster has a fatal flaw for a cosmic impartial observer. He has boundless empathy.
Which is dangerous.
Extremely. When a localized power outage hit the town, the human residents got scared. But someone pointed out that the sunset that evening was beautiful. So Aster, wanting to comfort them, simply froze the sun in place.
Just stop the Earth's rotation, effectively.
Yeah. And later, when a neighborhood kid scraped his knee on the pavement, Aster intuitively healed the cellular tissue with a single thought. It sounds beautiful, but the physics of that are terrifying.
Because empathy without strict boundary control is a highly destructive variable on a cosmic scale.
The thermodynamic debt, right?
Exactly. The universe operates on rigid thermodynamic laws. When Aster introduces localized massive energy to freeze a star's relative position or reverses entropy to heal organic tissue, he creates a thermodynamic debt.
And the universe always collects.
Always. That debt literally tore holes in space-time. By interfering to soothe minor human distress, Aster accidentally opened temporal windows across the galaxy.
It's wild.
His compassion resulted in pulling 23rd century Klingon and Romulan warships into the sky above 1984 California, along with giant, peaceful, spacefaring creatures called Valith. The entire fabric of reality began to fray and collapse.
The butterfly effect of good intentions. He tried to fix a scraped knee and accidentally summoned a Klingon war fleet into the 1980s.
It's a tragic irony.
It really is. And here's the most chilling detail of the entire file. Astor panicked when he saw the sky tearing open. To stop the temporal damage from spreading, he created the holding frame, the 1984 prison town Steve and Ryan were trapped in.
To contain the damage.
Right. But a pocket dimension needs immense processing power to remain stable. It needs structural scaffolding.
Sure.
So when Steve and Ryan got sucked into the temporal wave, Astor hijacked their displaced minds.
This is the craziest part.
He used their complex human memories, their cognitive maps, and their neural pathways as the literal load-bearing pillars of his fake reality.
Which perfectly explains the cognitive dissonance we discussed at the very beginning.
Oh, right.
Steve and Ryan felt a strange connection to the town, yet instinctively recognized its flaws, because they were walking around inside a prison built out of their own subconscious.
It is so creepy.
He offloaded the processing power of the simulation onto their brains. If Astor had succumbed to his panic, if that holding frame had collapsed before they surfed the wave out, Steve and Ryan wouldn't have just been killed.
What would have happened?
The structural collapse of the dimension would have entirely erased their neural identities. They would have ceased to exist as concepts.
Just wiped from the hard drive of reality. So what does this all mean? When you pull back and look at the entire narrative, the 1984 Sherman Oaks incident isn't just a thrilling sci-fi action story about EMPs, ray guns, and fighting cops in dark stairwells.
No, it's much bigger than that.
It is a profound, somewhat tragic exploration of how even the best intentions, like a cosmic child just trying to make people smile, can accidentally shatter reality.
It also ultimately reinforces the core thesis of their survival strategy.
Right.
When reality itself becomes compromised, whether it's due to a well-meaning cosmic entity breaking space-time or the algorithmic manipulation and manufactured narratives we face in our own modern world, pure logic and verifiable data remain your only reliable navigational tools.
Your anchor.
Yes. You might not have a Starfleet tricorder disguised as a vintage cassette player, but maintaining your critical thinking and ruthlessly separating objective fact from subjective feeling is your ultimate defense mechanism when the world stops making sense.
Which brings us to one final thing for you to mull over today. Think about the times you've experienced an intense, paralyzing wave of déjà vu.
We've all had that.
Right. Or those mundane moments where you had a sudden, completely unexplainable instinct to turn down a different street on your drive home. What if those aren't just random misfires of your brain's chemistry?
Oh, that's an unsettling thought.
What if, in that exact fleeting moment, your mind was being temporarily hijacked, used as a cognitive scaffolding to hold someone else's collapsing reality together?
Yeah.
Keep that in mind the next time the evening sunset looks just a little too perfect.